This is Edward VII, known as Bertie to his family. He was the eldest son and heir to Queen Victoria and her cousin husband Albert. While there was a strong physical resemblance, mother and son could not have been more different in personality or reputation. Victoria had been famously faithful to her husband Albert, even after his death in 1861. She famously wore black for the next 40 years in a perpetual state of mourning until her own death in 1901. Not only was the Queen devastated by her husband's early death, she actually blamed her eldest son Bertie. You see, Prince Albert had died in the wake of his first son's, we'll call it a romantic scandal, and it caused a rift between mother and son that would never fully be healed. It is said that little Prince Bertie had been sent away to school at Cambridge, still holding his V card, though he quickly rectified that situation in the arms of an Irish actress named Nellie Clifton. Albert was famously pious and prude, and he was said to have been so upset on learning of his son's first dalliances with a woman that he actually rushed to Cambridge to scold his son in person. The two were said to have gone on a long walk. Queen Victoria would later come to believe that it was during that walk to lecture Bertie that Albert came down with the typhoid fever that would soon take his life. It was most likely a coincidence that Albert died at that time, but Victoria certainly seemed convinced that it was all Bertie's fault for exposing the royal family to scandal. Now, lesser men might have taken a more cautious approach to future relationships, but Bertie was undeterred and went on to garner quite the reputation as a womanizer. In his many years as the Prince of Wales, he was embroiled in several high-profile scandals due to men who were none too pleased to learn that the Prince of Wales was bedding their blushing brides. Victoria, as you can imagine, was beyond just not amused. She was practically apoplectic and insisted that Bertie marry the beautiful Princess Alexandra, who was the daughter of King Christian IX and Queen Louisa of Denmark. Oh, and here's a little fun fact of history. Both the current Queen Elizabeth and her husband Prince Philip are direct descendants of both Queen Victoria and King Christian. So they're kind of double cousins? Majestic. Anyway, Princess Alexandra was thought to be the perfect woman to bring some respectability to Bertie and to bear him legitimate children to continue the royal bloodline. And it was a relatively happy match, given the entire situation. Alexandra was elegant, beautiful, and something of a fashionista, so much so that when she developed a slight limp after a bout with rheumatic fever in 1867, it actually became stylish for women of the court to imitate the limp. At the very least, she was smitten with her prince and went on to dutifully give birth to 6 children. While Bertie loved and appreciated his wife to an extent, and she would later become his queen consort, he never really lost his taste for, well, other men's wives. As he grew older and a bit heavier, he had several of these, we'll call them love chairs, to assist in his dalliances with 1, 2, or more ladies at a time. During her lifetime, Queen Victoria viewed his high libido with apprehension, afraid that sexual scandal would be the monarchy's downfall. But perhaps she need not have worried, because Bertie's infamous libido actually helped him to smooth relations between France and England during his kingship in the 1900s. His familiarity with the brothels of Paris made him an instant hero during his visit to France in 1903, and it helped earn him the nickname of the Peacemaker in honor of his successful diplomacy. He was also known as the Uncle of Europe, because, you know, the incest thing. Anywho, sadly, on the 6th of May, 1910, while supposedly hard at work, Bertie suffered several heart attacks and he died. His long-suffering Queen Alexandra tightly controlled access to his body for the next 8 days, only allowing a few people in to pay their respects. It was probably the longest amount of time she ever had with her husband. Supposedly. Allegedly. Anyway, 14 days after his death, the official funeral was held for the king. Royals, from the Tsar of Russia to the German Kaiser, were in attendance, and were also cousins and nephews of the king, along with the who's who of European nobility, making this funeral one of the last major social events before the build-up to the First World War. I'm willing to bet that those nobles and royals were highly amused by the sight of several of Bertie's mistresses, who, interestingly enough, were seated together at the service right near the front. This caused quite the gossip. I cannot even imagine what his mother would have thought. So if you were a little shocked to hear about the alleged side pieces at the memorial for Prince Philip last week, just remember that they are sticking with tradition. Some mistresses are content to stay in the background. Others are a bit more ambitious. Still others are not mistresses at all, but are instead male favorites. Male favorites often have the unenviable role of retreating to the background, lest anyone see any uncanny resemblances to anyone in the family and ask some uncomfortable questions. It may seem inappropriate to us, but bringing your lovers and love children to royal events is just tradition. What a mess.
Mistresses' values. His capacity to squeeze the fun out of any situation.
I think I might just put a knife in it.